Hi, I'm Lita Liepin.
And I'm Jim Gordon.
Welcome to another edition of Our City Tonight.
Lita, here we are in already into the latter part of June. Summer is in full bloom. Lots of things happening in the city. But where are we in this city right now?
We are standing in a little park right across from English Bay. It's so gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. It's always busy, but it's lovely in this part of the town. Anyway, we got lots to do in this episode, so we hope you enjoy Our City Tonight. Well, as my favorite ESPN TV host likes to say, history lesson, kids. About 75 years ago, before the Kardashians became the most famous and some people would say infamous sister act in town, there was another group of sisters who were as famous in their day. They didn't have a reality show, they didn't have YouTube or TikTok or social media, but they did make headlines quite often in Britain and around the world in the 1930s, which leads me to this. There is an original series that's now available on BritBox. You can check it out. It's all about the sisters, known as the Mitford Girls. And they blazed a trail throughout the 1930s and beyond. This wonderful series is called Outrageous. Recently, at the studio offices of our partner, the Richmond Sentinel, I had the chance to talk to one of the actresses from Outrageous. Now I'm sitting here in the studio offices at our partners, the Richmond Sentinel. They say that good things do come in three. I mentioned I'd be talking to one actress. Well, I got three. Before we get to them and Outrageous, let's take a look at the show.
We are the Mitford sisters. And one might say, we weren't just family. We were a force of nature.
Well, our guest now is Johanna Vanderham, Shannon Watson, and Zoe Bruff. They play three of the sisters in this wonderful new show that I binge-watched a couple days ago. It's called Outrageous. Look for it on BritBox now here in Canada. Ladies, welcome to Our City Tonight.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations on the show. As I said, I really enjoyed it. I want to start right at the beginning. For people who haven't watched the show yet, it's just recently come out in Canada. It is set in the early 30s. What's interesting, the threads that ran through for me are, A, the love that you sisters all have for one another, the family, the parents, your brother, despite differences of opinions, but also there's this cloud hanging around that hindsight's everything that your characters couldn't possibly know about, and that is just what's going to culminate in a Second World War. But there's also this thing that your father brings up right at the beginning, played by the superb actor James Purfoy, about that finances are not going to be what they once were. Can you talk about your characters and how they adapt to that? And Joanna, I'll start with you.
I mean, what an incredible introduction and question. I think what makes the show super unique is that people think that like the British aristocracy had loads of money but actually it's the truth of it is that they were house rich and they'd really suffered in the financial crash. And so they are moving from kind of having whatever they want in life to realizing that that's not going to be the case. But Diana is unique in that she has married really well, and so she does stay rich, and that's why I got to have all the great costumes and all the diamonds and the 4 houses, and the car, and and this and this. So Diana was sort of the she's the one that sort of had the money, but I think that's what makes the sisters so interesting, is that this family isn't just a story about rich people. It's about the reality of what life was like.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, they say that they didn't have a lot of money. They were rich, they just weren't in the rich kind of like group. And I think Fav was actually quite bad with money.
Yeah, hilariously bad with money.
He kept building houses, then moving the family, and then building another house. And then, he was just terrible with money. And you can sort of see that with the costumes that maybe me and Zoe start off wearing, where we we would borrow each other's clothes, and Unity's wouldn't fit her quite properly, and they would be moth bitten, and
There's a genuine, sincere interest in these paths that they chase politically.
Yeah, huge. And I think Diana set the ball rolling, in my opinion, when it comes to politics and getting involved. And I think for Decca, because I can obviously only speak on her behalf, but I think, yeah, Decca saw the bigger picture, wasn't satisfied in the realm that she'd been grown up in, didn't feel like the people that she was mixing with were her tribe. And I think she found issues with that. And it was impossible to turn your head and look away at what was going on in the world in that time. I mean, the rich were getting richer, the poor are poorer, and there was such a huge inequality in the world. And I think Deckard saw an opportunity and grabbed it by the horns and just went, how can I make a difference? And how can I make my mark in the world? And that's, I guess, why she chose communism and that sort of side of the spectrum, which is obviously the opposite.
Interestingly, because I feel like they were all trying to do that. They were all trying to make their place in the world, have a say about what was going on, and be involved in a new way of life, a change of the current situation. And they just so happened to be completely opposing views on how that should be done. And I think that's what makes the show so fascinating, because it's like, well, they're all sisters. How did they possibly develop such different perspectives on how the world should be run? And that's what the show kind of delves into, this sort of nature versus nurture of it, and how people can be radicalized. And so it was really fun for us to kind of delve into that conversation.
Yeah, I think you keyed in on the word there, radicalization, because it does come about. It's interesting that I've had several conversations with friends who have watched the show already, that the relevancy of where this show of yours takes place and what's going on today, it's astounding that it's very relevant to what's going on today.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I think it is hugely relevant, and we were kind of freaked out when we were filming at how relevant it was, even nearly 100 years later on in life. But I also think there's this thing, we talk about this, but they were the it girls of the time. They were extremely, people really admired them. I think they were always in the, tabloids and the newspapers. And there's a similarity with that, with our generation, of the celebrity obsession and the celebrity culture.
And influencer culture, and where you're getting your information from.
Yeah,
and how you can be radicalized by, the echo chamber of your environment. And that right now it's the internet. And, back then it was different. But I feel like that's a really, obvious parallel to be drawn. And I think there are scenes in the show when, we're sitting, well, you guys are sitting around the dinner table and politics comes up, and everybody's put off their food. And I feel like families around the world, but North America and Britain alike, are going to be sitting there going, I've had awkward dinners like that.
Yeah, that seems interesting as well, because it's the scene when they're talking, and when Unity's sort of asking questions about politics and about this thing, Fav just she tries to shut her up. And maybe the sort of Jessica eggs her on a little bit in that scene as well, to sort of prove herself, and to prove as women for that time to have a voice.
And maybe if he'd had a conversation with you about it, you wouldn't have been set on the path that you were set on.
Yeah.
I think that's what the show kind of raises, is keep having those conversations.
Keep having the
with your
conversations.
loved ones.
Notice the first traits of it.
Yeah, and I would say my only criticism, ladies, is that when I was done, I kept thinking, I know there's so much more history for your characters and we need more episodes. Any chance you might know whether more are coming?
Well, we're just waiting to hear, really, I think, from the response of when it's released.
Yeah, we've got to get the viewer numbers is what's going to decide it. But they've already written the first 3 episodes, so we're hoping that the networks are backing it, and
it's on such a cliffhanger. I'm like, come on.
Oh yeah, and there's so much
not.
to come. There's so many things that they get up to. I mean, it is stranger than fiction.
Well, congratulations to all 3 of you on a great show. As I said, I watched it all in one afternoon. Can't wait to see more. Outrageous is coming, or I should say is available now here in Canada on BritBox, this little firm right here. Thanks to everybody who helped set this up. And ladies, thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations on a wonderful series. I can't wait to see more.
Thank you.
This wine moment is brought to you by M. Chapoutier, wines that respect and share the story of terroir from the Rhone Valley and beyond since 1808.
Well, we have just finished an amazing wine lunch here at Le Crocodile, and we are in the birdcage. I am joined by James Leonardo Dessau. He is the export director, Canadian export director of M. Chapoutier Winery that we just had an amazing lunch with. And we are going to jump right into, we were so excited to learn so much about this incredible winery, over 200 years old. James, tell us what makes this winery so special.
The winery, M. Chapoutier Winery, as you said, has been making wine for more than 200 years, starting in 1808. We're now into the 8th generation, actually 9th, as there was just Marcus Chapoutier, who was just born last year. And so 8th generation of winemaker, focusing on savoir-faire and terroir especially. So we are based in Tain-l'Hermitage, about an hour south of Lyon, and really focusing on pursuing and showing what the different terroirs of the Rhone Valley and even beyond of the Rhone Valley are available, and what we can show to the consumer, and making wines that reflect all those terroirs, basically.
I loved what you said during the lunch, is that the winemakers don't want you to be able to guess what that wine is. They want to make wine so unique that every single wine is a surprise and it reflects the terroir. And I was excited about that, and you certainly didn't disappoint. Let's talk about the 4 different wines that you brought for us to share with our audience today.
Yeah, for sure. So so Chapoutier, as I said, it's nothing about us. Basically, it's everything about terroir. So we're going towards different terroirs in the Rhone Valley and outside of the Rhone now. So outside of the Rhone, actually, the first estate we acquired was called Bilao. It's in Roussillon, and we'll start with the Bilao Roussillon white wine, which is a blend of Grenache, Marsanne, and Roussanne. So really varietals that we see in the Rhone Valley that we have also in the south of France. So first estate we acquired, really typical blend. We don't want anything. We don't want to have a signature of Chapoutier. We don't want to be able to guess that it's a Chapoutier wine, but we want you to be able to recognize the Roussillon appellation, and that's what we are trying to do. So really fresh wine available at the BCL as well, and we're focusing on making that terroir, making the most out of the terroir. So we are kind of trying to avoid any usage or too much use of wood. So we'll focus on vinification and aging and maturation of the wine into steel, for the stainless steel for the whites, and mostly concrete for the reds. So to keep all that freshness of the grape, and making sure it's the terroir first again. So
perfect. And this one's in the similar bent, but the red.
Exactly. So it's basically the brother or sister. It's coming from the same area. So first estate outside of the Rhone, again Bilao. So in the Roussillon, near the Mediterranean Sea, closer to the Spain border. Here it's again, we're not inventing anything. We're using what we know when we're trying to do what we do best. So using the Grenache and the Syrah, the 2 main grapes that we see for red wines in the Rhone Valley, but into another region. We blend them together, concrete, mostly for the vinification, just to preserve all the freshness and the fruit of the wine. So really easy to pair, really balanced wine, and it's really great to discover different regions. Quite accessible in terms of price. In BC, it would be under $20, so quite accessible, and really balanced, really easy to. You won't be afraid to put that in the middle of a table of 4 or 6 of your friends, and it's quite a pleasure wine, if I could say.
Oh, now let's move down over there.
Yeah, here it's really interesting if you have the opportunity to taste the two together basically and to compare. It's same grapes, so you have a Grenache Syrah, but here it's coming closer to our home, closer to the Rhône, as it's our Côte du Rhône. So it's called Belle Ruche. So in English, it would be Belle Ruche would be pretty beehive, just in reference to all the honey production that is in the Côte du Rhône and in the Rhône Valley. So Grenache Syrah, same vinification process with that concrete aging of around 6 months, but it will be two completely different wines because again, it's not a Chapoutier signature. We could find ways to do the harvest in those different regions and kind of give the same outcome to the wine, but our vision again is really the terroir. So we have the same vinification, same grapes, same varietals, same everything, but except the terroir, the climate is different, so we'll produce two different wines. So interesting to taste and compare one to the other. Again, this one as well as the others will be available for the BC consumer.
Wonderful, wonderful. And the final?
The final one is actually one of my favorites. So I like to end with my favorite. It's a cru. So it's coming from Clos Hermitage. Again, we were approaching to where everything started at Chapoutier. Clos Hermitage is one of the larger appellations in northern Rhône. It's everything basically that is around the Hermitage Hill. Hermitage being one of the most known appellations for making world-renowned Syrah. Here we are outside this Hermitage Hill. We still have some really nice quality of vines with older vines, 30 to 40 years old. We use just a little bit of wood in the vinification process to keep a little bit of that consistency, around 50% of wood, but the rest will be vinified, aging in concrete vats. So 100% Syrah. It's a really great wine to have access to those northern Rhône Syrah, that freshness, those blackcurrant aspect to it. Really great wine, quite affordable as well. So if you don't know a lot necessarily about those appellations such as Côte-Rôtie, Hermitage, Saint-Joseph, and you want to be introduced, it's clearly a really nice option to get introduced to that nice world of Syrah in the northern Rhône.
Well, M. Chapoutier Winery definitely has a wine for everyone. And from what I've tasted back in 2020 when we had you on, one of your colleagues, there is something for everyone, and who can not love French wine, which in fact, the Vancouver International Wine Festival is their theme next year, France.
Yeah, exactly. And it's clearly, it's one beside terroir, the fact that you mentioned it's a wine for everyone, that's basically our vision. We want to make sure wine and French wine that can be seen as sometimes complicated is just, at the end of the day, it's just wine, it's just terroir, and we're just here to observe what the wine does. And we try to get it as accessible as possible to everyone. So we have different terroirs, different people working on those terroirs, and we want to make sure everyone is enjoying it. We also have the braille on all the labels, for example, just again, that value of inclusivity, and that everybody should have access and should be able to taste what Earth is able to provide, basically.
I love that, and it's great wine. So thank you, James, for joining us here on Our City Tonight. Looking forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very much.
This wine moment was brought to you by M. Chapoutier, one of the oldest wine families from the Rhône region.
Well, it is without a doubt the most unique radio show and podcast recorded in Vancouver. The chat room, I think it's safe to say. We've got two of the three hosts joining us here above the Penthouse Nightclub in Tyrant Studios in the Gold Room. Joe Leary, Danny Filipponi join us. Guys, welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Great to have us, cute.
You go ahead with that first question. Tell us where we are.
Okay, well, we're going to go right to Joe, and you can talk. Well, did you want to have Danny talk about the space first?
Well, I would say let's start with Danny, yeah.
Yes, all right, you're on first.
Throw
Okay.
it to me. So
We want to know all about this place.
Yeah, the chat room, our podcast started about a year and a half ago. We've got a great story how that started, but when we started the podcast, we actually started it in the penthouse down below. There was only 4 of us at the time. It was Joe and I, Aaron, and Eddie, just the 4 of us. It was sort of all quiet, and as we're doing it, we thought, maybe the next episode we should take it up to the jazz room. And so we brought it up here, we sort of got cozy, and after about 4 or 5 episodes, we started looking around and realized there wasn't just 4 people, there was 10, 20, 30, and fast forward to a year and a half later, typically it becomes a Friday afternoon party, and it's a full house. So it's really taken off.
Definitely an elite party.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
the party you want to be at, and Joe, I've known you for 100 years. I saw that you posted something recently which says a lot about this show, because you've been in radio for a long time. You said this is the work that you are most proud of.
Oh, without question. And the thing is that there's a certain intimacy and charm to it. Even though we packed this place, I call it the best party you're likely never going to get invited to. And that's not to be, demeaning to anybody. It's kind of word of mouth or friends of friends. And you walk in here in the middle of the day, and it's kind of like the Ed Sullivan Show. There's no dancing bears on unicycles or anything like that, but it's an entertainment show with a bit of a sports theme. And it's just a blast, and people love the vibe that's in the room.
Walking out in the middle of the afternoon always poses a bit of a surprise when you're exiting the penthouse at 4 in the afternoon and cars are driving by.
Very eager. As well.
And the other
Quickly
thing
the
is-
door.
And Danny has faced this his entire life. When you tell people the penthouse, they go, oh, the penthouse. I mean, the penthouse has a certain charm to it and has for many, many years. But this is upstairs in a private area, really nice live space. And there's the downstairs, the regular penthouse activities.
Yes.
But this is kind of like an exclusive little sublet.
And
of
going
the
to
penthouse.
exclusive, the gold room where we are actually right now in these gold chairs. There's quite the history here. I mean, Jackie was just bringing out old menus and that. Tell us a little bit about that, because we're gonna pan to some of those.
Where we record today in the chat room studio, the Tyrant Bar, it used to be called the Gold Room. In fact, a long time ago, it used to be a restaurant called the Steak Loft. And the Steak Loft was one of the first steak restaurants, even when before Highs of Highs Encore, Highs used to purchase steak from my Uncle Joe before he even opened Highs. In fact, right over here in the corner behind one of our hidden walls that we built, if you were to take an axe and break down the wall, you would see one of those big fire pit grills where you cook steaks. It's still here. We just don't use it for obvious reasons, but it's all there, trust me.
Fire and safety for one, I guess. Yeah.
Right?
We should also say, too, one of the great locations for the Jazz Festival.
Wonderful.
We were here recently doing a segment on them. Joe, you mentioned Ed Sullivan. It's a dated reference, but I love coming to your shows because, there's a great cross-section. I mean, your last episode, you had Bill Henderson on from Chilliwack singing. I mean, there's a great cross-section of guests.
And that's what we're trying to do, because when Danny, and how this whole thing came about is it's actually quite by fluke. I was down here a couple of years ago doing a magazine article on the penthouse, and Danny, I've known Danny for a good long time. And as he's walking me out, he goes, hey, myself and Aaron Chapman, we're thinking about doing a podcast. You do podcasts. How do I connect the dots? I said, I'll connect the dots, but I want to be part of it, because it was going to be about the history of Vancouver, the nightlife in Vancouver, and what have you. Sportsnet said, we like it, but can you have a sports element to it? So we'll have like a Kirk McLean down here, or Tom Gallardi, owner of the Dallas Stars, down here. Walter Cosman from the Vancouver Canadians down here. So we have a sports element to it, but it's not a sports show. And literally, it was that simple. Danny just goes, can we hook it up? And within like 48 hours, he goes, hey, I got a title sponsor ready to go, and I got this sponsor, and boom, it happened.
But it's the guests that we have on the show, as you said, Jim, the guests are incredible. I mean, I don't know how Joe comes up. There's a lot of connections going on. As I say, your Rolodex is flying at high volume. I mean, we've had politicians on the show. We've had actors. We've had comedians. We've had sports hosts. We had
the woman who streaked on the ice on the Canucks game back in the day.
We did, yes.
For which there was much hell to pay.
Yes, we did that. So there's been a lot of guests. And our lineup of guests, one more thing, Joe always says, Danny, we're going to keep this show to 3 guests. got to keep it to 3 guests. I look on the chart today, we're at 7 guests.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And we should bring up, you have a third host, Aaron Chapman.
Aaron Chapman,
Chapman.
he's the local Vancouver historian. He wrote the Penthouse book, Liquor, Lust, and the Law. He's actually gone on to pen 5 other books, and Aaron sits right next to me during the chat room, and anytime someone comes on the show, Aaron refers to something dating back, and he's great to have on the show.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and we should say, I've never been up here when you guys are recording your show and it's this quiet.
Yes.
Because when you
It's
do
about to
your
change.
show,
This is
it
not characteristic, I will tell
loud,
you,
there's some drinks,
Yes.
people talking, conversing, networking, and listening to your show. And, well, of course, we're going to enjoy being on your show. Joe, where can people find out more on the show?
You can find out more on the show, The Chat Room Tyrant Studios on Instagram, and also through sportsnet.ca/650 under shows. It airs monthly, usually on a Saturday or Sunday. On a weekend, it repeats through the week. But I encourage people to go and check out past shows
I think
because
it's
we've
on
had some great ones.
Spotify as well.
Yes.
It's on Spotify, it's on Apple playlists. It's wherever you get your podcasts, as the kids say.
Wonderful.
Yeah, as we said, it is the most unique radio show podcast recorded in this city.
Well, thank you.
It's a great
Thank you. I
party and a
appreciate
lot
that.
of fun. And we should also say, last one to you. You can also hear some great music year-round here.
Yeah, the Tyrant Studios has really turned into it was a very secretive spot for the first 2 years. Not so secret anymore. I mean, it's packed here on the weekends.
And you can go to their website, monthly
Studios.
music calendar,
Absolutely.
as Jackie pointed out, the hippest little room in Vancouver.
Yeah, it's a great spot. Come up here, come on up with your friends and check it out. And if you've had a few cocktails, you can always come visit me downstairs at the Penthouse.
Or take place in a...
For something a little bit different than Tyrant Studios.
And gather into a conga line, too, if I'm not mistaken. Hey, it's Danny and Joe Chat Room. As Joe mentioned, you can find it and give it a listen. It's a lot of fun, and as we said, one of the most unique shows that you will hear in this city. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Closed captioning and other promotional considerations provided by Hamilton High Street Senior Residence, Richmond's newest senior living community.
Well, we're back here where we started the show. Right behind us is English Bay.
Boy, that sun came out very brightly in just a few seconds
No
ago.
sunscreen.
No, we've got to get that on. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this edition of Our City Tonight. We should remind you, in the next new episode, we are going to officially celebrate our 10-year anniversary. We're into our 11th year. But also, our next episode will be episode 200.
200, Jim.
Wow.
That is amazing. So we are celebrating, and we're very grateful to you, our audience.
That's right. We'll show some musical memories in that 200th episode and show you a few other things. That's all coming up next time. I'm Jim Gordon.
And I'm Lita Leapins.
See you on episode 200 of Our City Tonight.
You can contact us and watch past episodes at ourcitytonighttv.com. The Richmond Sentinel, providing news, entertainment, and human interest stories in print and online.